Both Sirach and the psalmist remind us that the Lord hears the cry of the poor. And in Luke's gospel, Jesus tells this story to remind us of the same. And that can be a little hard for us because we don't want to be poor. We don't want to be vulnerable. We want to be safe and in charge. And we want to be independent and to be able to take care of ourselves. The Pharisee was, right? He had taken control of his life. He had safety and shelter. He took care of his moral life. He had built virtues. He had overcome almost all of the 7 deadly sins. He was in charge of his salvation, which means that he wasn't saved. And this tax collector, who probably found himself in a very unenviable position of marginalization and exclusion, whose only options for friends were people who were reasonably marginalized and excluded, probably not all that good a people. This tax collector, who probably hadn't overcome any of the deadly sins and was definitely not living a life of virtue, but he recognized his need. He recognized his poverty. He recognized his vulnerability, and the Lord heard him. For us, having built a religion over centuries that is focused on right living, we should always take caution in the stories of the Pharisees, who also had built a religious system based on righteousness. Because it isn't our righteousness or our right living or our virtue that will save us. It is only God's love. And He loves us maybe especially when we're vulnerable and broken and in need. That's a critically important lesson for me, probably for me and for you, because we like to stand on our own feet. And we're invited today to humbly fall into God's arms. But I think it's also important for how we function as a community and as a church, that we're not looking for strong people who have managed to overcome the temptations of life, who have managed to build a life of virtue and will be honorable members of our community. That's not where holiness lies. We're looking for those who are willing to allow themselves to be saved by God. I, needing to learn to recognize my vulnerabilities and accept help there, I'd much rather live in the places where I'm strong and can help others and be a blessing. But we're also invited, maybe especially invited, to remember those places where we need help, to remember those places where we aren't complete, and to allow God to do that work in us as we humbly ask Him, maybe even more humbly ask one another for patience and mercy, to take compassion on us, to receive us, to allow us into a community of sinners who are loved by our God, a community of imperfect and broken people, led by one who is imperfect and broken, but that together we might find the fullness of God's mercy, of God's love, of God's redemption.
Soul.